A little bit of something to put us into the mood.
Getting up in the morning hasn't always been easy, but it's all different now. I'm ready for this moment. It's mine.
When I was a kid, I used to run everywhere. I forgot what it was like to run without a worry in the world.
Running is like meditation for me.
It keeps me going. Even though it's tough at times.
I found the courage to push my boundaries and step out of the ordinary to see how far I can go.
Now I'm faster and stronger. I've gone further than I ever expected. I've found my way.
Hello and good morning. My name is Suvilaakso. I'm the Group Product Director for Polar, and I'm very, very happy to be here with you today. Before I get started, I wanted to ask you, how many of you are familiar with Polar? Okay, so it makes sense for me to be here because many of you don't know very much about Polar, so happy to be here. Okay, so my presentation, what we're going to talk a little bit about is the history of Polar, where we came from, where we are today, and what are some of the things that we're doing to achieve success, and then share a few thoughts about where we're going in the future. Interspersed within this presentation is a little bit about the structure of our company and some of the other areas, how we're set up and what we consider to be important. So this history of Polar begins in 1977, when the founder of the company, who was a professor at the local university, an electronics professor, he was on a ski trail, and he met up with a friend of his who was a skiing coach. And this coach and the professor, Seppo Sannekangas is his name, they were discussing, and the coach said, you know, it would be amazing if there was some way to be able to monitor the heart rate of athletes as they train without having to stop and measure your heart rate, count 15 seconds, multiply by 4, because that's just not an effective way to train efficiently. So in 1977, that's when the professor got inspired to try to find a solution to a problem, how to take the technology to actually help to solve a problem that the real world coaches were having. And by 1982, he was able to, Polar launched its very first heart rate monitor device. This was a device where you wear a strap on your chest and it transmits your heart rate to a wrist watch, digital watch interface like this. That was the world's very first mobile or ambulatory heart rate monitor for athletes and fitness people. And it wasn't just one device, but you could say it was also the birth of the category, the fitness tech category, the very world's first tech wearable type of device for fitness. So that was back in 1982 was when the very first device was launched commercially, and I'll show you some images of that a little bit later. So from that point, instantly, top athletes, Olympians, world-breaking athletes, Tour de France winners, were wanting to use this Polar technology to be able to train more effectively. And that was really in the 80s what happened was the top of the pyramid just took Polar technology to use for endurance sports. And then slowly all the people that were at the next level lower, everybody was looking up and saying, what are you doing to break those world records? What are you doing to win the gold medals in the Olympics? What type of technology, training techniques, what are you doing? And Polar was a key part of that story. So as that happened, we started to move down to the different tiers to broader groups of fitness and sports enthusiasts. And throughout the years since that point, we've always been innovating. We've wanted to take the category forward. And I've picked some examples throughout the history. There's many more, but for the sake of time, we just selected some highlights from where we've taken some firsts in the category. So this is one of the earliest versions. This is from 1984, the sports tester. And this was a digital watch type of device, but it already had a computer interface for downloading the training data after and being able to do deeper analysis on a computer interface. You can see from the design that this was most likely designed by an engineer and not by a designer. In 1990, Polar launched the very first bike computer that integrated heart rate as well. In 2007, we launched our very first activity monitor, not our step counter, an activity monitor. We were, I think, sorry to say, but too far ahead of the rest of the market. Too many people confused our activity monitors with pedometers, for example, that are used by typically older people. This had a lot of unique innovation in there. It had this avatar character who would show which activity zone you were moving in, whether you were moving slowly or in higher intensity activities. It also gave activity guidance. When Nike launched the Nike Fuel Band in about 2013, that's when I think with that marketing muscle, they were able to actually help the category of activity monitoring take to a new level. And that's where actually we kind of came back to the market at a later phase with new technology. In 2013, now we're leaping forward, we launched the very first activity monitor called the Loop that integrated heart rate and inactivity alerts. Does anybody know what the new smoking is nowadays? Sitting. If you sit for more than 1 hour, it tends to put pressure on your internal organs, increases the, let's say, disease risk quite dramatically. So we had this type of feature that gives you a warning if you've been sitting or inactive for too long. It reminds you to get up, move around, open up your stance to be able to get your organs moving and the circulation improved. And we also added heart rate to that. In 2014, we launched the V800, which was the very first device that took GPS, heart rate tracking, and activity tracking, and then combined it all for elite level athletes. Because up until this point, most athletes were tracking very closely what they're doing while they're training. But it's actually very important what you're doing when you're not training. How well are you sleeping? You know, for example, these types of things are very much affecting your performance. And now this year we actually have transitioned even further into first cloud services where we've launched a system called the Polar Flow for Coach. And what this does is it allows coaches and personal trainers to interface through the web and manage their end customer, their clients and athletes, to become more effective. We have a lot of personal trainers in our company. We have a lot of top-level coaches, and we've been analyzing very quite carefully how do coaches and athletes, how do personal trainers and fitness people interact. Too often it's just about text message, email, telephone, not very efficient. So what we did was we created a system where the coach can design training interface, see what the client is doing with the training calendar, analyze their training. The coach can then transfer those training targets to the end customer's web service, and then ultimately that guidance goes to the devices. So on the day of your training session, all you got to do is start your training session, and the device will guide you through the training session that your coach designed. So taking it to the next level, we consider this will be quite disruptive in the category again. We expect many of our competitors to also start launching similar type of features in the future. So what really drives us? And what's the thing that we believe in? Well, we believe very much that everyone is made to move. And to be able to move more effectively, we believe that everybody has the right to be able to employ the right tools and the know-how that the elites and the experts have in the industry. We combine that then with a lot of curiosity and a huge passion for sports and fitness. We work very closely with universities and other companies around the world because we can't think of everything ourselves. We have to find ways to be able to embrace innovation that other countries and other people and other companies can do and integrate that into our experience. And what does this do? I'll give you some examples, like real-world examples of what we call about training in a smart way and how we integrate that into our devices. Energy pointer. How many people here know, first of all, how many people here have ever trained with heart rate monitoring or heart rate? Track your heart rate when you're doing fitness. Okay, not very many. I'd ask those people who train with heart rate, do you know offhand what's the correct heart rate zone to be able to train in most effectively? Some do. Most people don't. And it's not fair for any one of us to assume that any normal person would have automatically the knowledge as to what's the right training zone for heart rate. It's amazing how many wearable devices are out there that are talking about, well, we have heart rate monitoring. The big question is, what do you do with that heart rate monitoring? What kind of actionable information does that heart rate monitoring give you? Yeah, it shows you your heart rate. But the fact is that most of us, we don't know what that means. It's a number. We want that number to mean something. We want that information to give you guidance. So with Energy Pointer, we make it very simple. This is a simple fitness product. When you train, when your heart rate is on this side of the line, you're improving your fitness. When this little heart rate moves to below that line, you're maximizing your fat burn. And it's not just done based on a simple general formula. It's based on understanding the heart rate variability. We're tracking every single one of your heartbeats with 1 millisecond resolution. And through that, we're able to determine what is the optimal training zone for you that day. It changes from day to day. If you're stressed out, if you're tired, dehydrated, this will all impact on your heart rate variability. So it's a very personalized, actionable guidance. That's what we call smart coaching. Training benefit. So every time we do some type of a training event, we always think, well, that felt pretty good. What did I achieve today? Well, with training benefit, we analyze that workout all together, and we give you very simple guidance or feedback at the end of every training session. What did you achieve? Did you achieve maximal performance, improve your VO2 max? Did you burn a lot of fat? This type of a thing. So you don't have to do the analysis. The device does the hard work for you. Gives you the insights that like coaches and sports physiologists would give you. Running index. How many people here are runners? Quite a few, okay. So the classic thing for runners is that every time you run, wouldn't it be amazing to just be able to get a score for that run? Was I better today than I was a week ago when I did a similar type of run? With running index, after every single run, you get a running index score. So you get this number, for example, 52. What does that mean? Well, if I was able to go out and run a 5K run, it would let me be able to run a 23-minute run. That's what my fitness level is at as a runner. If I was to run a half marathon, my capability is at 144. A lot of runners who are especially training for their first event, they have no idea what their capability is. How fit are they? With running index, we take away the guesswork. We know what your maximum heart rate is. We know how hard your body is working to achieve the speed and the distance that you achieved during that run. We factor in your altitude if you're climbing or going downhill. We take away that, and we just give you a simple number. And the fact is, when I'm not running for very long, my running index drops to about 44. But then when I start to train more effectively, it can go up to 56, 58, this type of a thing. It also helps me to understand that if I change my technique, I can actually improve my running index. If I can dress more appropriately for the weather, my running index again can go up. So again, taking away the guesswork, making people feel confident, and feel good about what they're achieving. The activity goal. How many people here use activity monitoring devices? Really? That few? I don't know. I mean, you saw Pankaj's presentation earlier. It's a pretty big category. A lot of people are tracking activity. What we realize is that most people don't know what is the right dosage of activity for them every day. That's okay. That's all right. But what we did was, with polar devices, with activity goal, we understand what your age is, what your sex is, what your body weight is, your basic activity level, whether you're working or sitting during your day. From this, we are able to give you the World Health Organization activity goal for your personal metrics. And that way you can really see that how close you are to your activity goal based on something that's really relevant to you. It's very easy. Okay, now I switch from smart coaching to something that is called smart notifications. This is really popular in the smartwatch world. So what I wanted to say is there's a lot of smartwatches out there that are kind of generic smartwatches that do some sports stuff, kind of dabble with it. We've also integrated smart notifications as some examples, first examples of certain smartwatch features that we're integrating into our devices. We know that, for example, when you're running or cycling or doing some kind of sports and you get a call, you don't necessarily want to stop the training session to be able to answer that. But if you know who's calling, it can help you to decide whether you should or you shouldn't. So the smart notifications have been, let's say, sports optimized, fitness optimized, and that's really gives you some perspective on the way we're approaching the category. So we do, you could say arguably we've been doing smartwatches for a very long time, but now we're integrating some of these more generic smartwatch features. Design process has been a very, very important part of Polar's success. From the design process, that means it's really about making beautiful products that look great and people want to wear and use on their bicycles, and et cetera. And we're looking across the different categories, and those are influencing our designers to come up with good design. They're looking at the automotive industry, they're looking even at the furniture industry, to really make sure that we create designs that are attractive and that are also functional and are also, how do I say, functional, highly functional. Let's skip over here too. And when we get the design part right, we're able to really get the right combination of functionality, comfort, and then attractive looks. And you can see we've been winning some awards quite recently with a lot of our newer products in the design side. So we make devices, and originally we were a heart rate monitor company, but we are now more, let's say, we consider ourselves a smart coaching company. We don't just make devices, but we sell an experience. And a big part of this experience is the Flow service. It's a new web service that allows for the end customers to interface and use their, to connect their devices and do an analysis and be able to see and understand better visualization of their training data. It allows them to connect with each other, to share and celebrate their training sessions, to relive like highlights from their workouts, and then also to be able to do deeper analysis. That said, also the Flow service is connecting to many other companies and other services as well to be able to give a broader experience. In addition to the Flow service, we have the Flow app. There's mobile apps that are running on both Android and on iOS. And what these allow is to be able to get deeper insights, more than what we can show here on the mobile interface, which is much bigger. So you can see this is the activity status screenshot, 71% of my daily World Health Organization goal for my metrics. And you can see the breakdown of which activity zones I've been in, and then some recommendations as to what type of activity I could undertake that day to achieve my goal still. You can see that night I didn't sleep very well, 4 hours and 19 minutes. Here you can see another visualization of different phases of activity and sleep during the 24/7 cycle. And what we also do is not just track the activity, but also rest. So we can determine when you fall asleep, and then also how restful your sleep is. We don't do REM sleep tracking, but at least you can understand how good your sleep is. My sleep level is typically around 80%. How many people here sleep? Okay. So a little bit about the Polar Company. So the red dots represent where we have subsidiaries, and we also have a lot of distributors in other markets. We're sold in over 80 countries, and our products are sold in over 35,000 retail locations globally. And we are based in Finland. Our roots are there. Finland is a very engineering-oriented country, but it also has a lot of really good education institutions that integrate also great design and good research. There's three dimensions to the Polar Company. So the consumer, the sport sector is the most visible. You see that in the retail stores globally. And these are the products that runners and fitness people can buy as consumers. Then we have the Polar Solutions, and this is like B2B type of solutions for institutions and companies. And we work with fitness clubs around the world, professional sports teams, and also in the education sector. You're thinking about that Kid Watch. We have over 1 million kids in the US that use Polar in PE class and have been doing so for the last 10 years, tracking activity and heart rate, because it allows the teachers to be able to quantify the training in PE class. Very, very interesting and growing area, for sure. This is interesting. I just wanted to highlight this. This is the Polar Team Pro system. Polar has been working for the last roughly 8 to 10 years with top-level pro teams also. We have a system that allows coaches to be able to track 50 players in real time on the training pitch. Wearing this device, it has 100 hertz GPS, very high resolution GPS data to be able to get the movement on the pitch, to be able to get the heart rate, the orientation, accelerations, decelerations. And what this allows is coaches to be able to get much more quantified data, to be able to make objective decisions about how the players are performing on the pitch in training. Who's getting sick, who's getting stronger, who's getting weaker by the numbers. Because when you really want to improve performance, it's about really seeing the facts. It's not just about the feelings. So this is transforming pro-level sports at the Olympic level. We have 13 out of the 15 teams in the Bundesliga, and that's the German top league, and that are using this system. Other Champions League teams in football, in North America, NFL, NHL, NBA teams that are using this system. And this is the newest generation, the Team Pro, that's just been launched actually a couple weeks ago. Then we have Polar Technologies. We have a division that sells OEM components that are integrated into fitness equipment, like treadmills and this type of a thing that are sold around the world. So what we consider to be key success factors is really, first of all, understanding the customers, understanding the needs of the customers. That's what drives us. So yes, we use technology. We're a technology company on some level, but the fact is that when you really understand what the needs of the customers are and you work towards that, that's when you have commercially successful solutions. You can't go the other way and just create technology and then try to figure out how do I apply that to a customer use case. Functional and beautiful design, the industrial design aspect there, engineering and testing to last. So we use really tough, rugged materials. For example, in the V800, this is a device for elite level athletes, stainless steel and aluminum to be able to give like very, let's say, resilient, long-lasting survivability in tough environments, this kind of thing. We do a lot of hardcore testing in terms of like heat cycling, cold cycling, drop testing to make sure that our devices survive the rigors of sports and fitness. So, and then that leads us to testing and then fine-tuning. And then going into the future, well, what we're focusing on is the IoT space. That's where we see a lot of opportunity to take what our niche capabilities are and then marry that to other, let's say, a broader ecosystem to be able to give more value feedback loops to the end customer and to be able to interact with other things in the different spaces. Third-party services and devices. I just wanted to mention here that, for example, insurance companies today are working with Polar to have incentive and rewards programs. When people train and do fitness activities, the training data goes automatically through the cloud to the insurance company, and the insurance company says, this person is taking care of themselves. I'm going to lower their life insurance rate or their healthcare rate, for example. And this is a really big, important thing because governments and companies all over the world are trying to find ways to be able to help the people to be encouraged to be more active. So people using our devices, this is one example where they're able to interact using the web and get more value to them. 24/7 design of wearables. So we've transitioned from creating devices that are optimized for the training environment to this 24/7 cycle. So wearing devices all day, every day. That has a huge impact on the way we design products, also on the materials that we do with this type of a thing and our use cases. Bluetooth, I think, is still in a very formative stage in terms of Bluetooth low energy. There are lots of opportunities there with the Bluetooth roadmap in terms of mesh type of capabilities going forward and different type of topologies and things like that. So it's a great, great technology that I think is moving the sports and fitness category forward because it's allowing for greater connectivity between different types of devices across the sectors and supporting the convergence of fitness and sports with mobile, with other categories as well. And then another big part of our future story is working with coaches and personal trainers to make their jobs more successful. We're not competing with coaches or personal trainers to take away their jobs. We want to help them to be more successful. So that's where, again, that's like a big, big part of our future focus. And then, of course, the smart coaching experience. To be able to take more of those features that I showed earlier, make them smarter, make them interact with one another to be able to create even more value add for the end customers. So we started on the trail talking to coaches to understand what their needs are, and that's where you're still going to find us out there on the track with our ears open, our eyes open, wanting to understand what your needs are to be able to make better products and services for you. And I want to thank you very much for your attention. 谢谢。